Good afternoon, and welcome to another disgusting episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now, here's your disgruntled and disjointed host, Voice of Doom. Hello. I'm going to have a strawberry daiquiri from the can today. It's a bit carbonated, but tastes all right. You actually can't drink more than a couple of those before you feel it because they 10%. Wanted to do something a little bit different as far as I saw something on YouTube which I feel the need to comment on, but I couldn't watch it. So I'm going to comment from the standpoint of what I will assume would have been there. It was an atrocity. It was a travesty, a horrible visage, and I'm not talking about atrocities in Ukraine and genocide. I'm talking about atrocities in the White House. Now, I can just hear the aides going, we're kind of getting up against it. Everyone's hating our guts. We need something that's going to make people clap and make people like us, and something that's foolproof. So let's drag out an old bromide. Let's drag out some dusty old relic from the past and pat ourselves on the back. And we will get an audience which is captive in every way to clap. So I saw the gargoyle and petri dish doddering out with the Punahou punk, whose real full name is Punahou Freshman Punk. And I'll tell you why I consider him that way and always will. Because when I got my first real job in a restaurant in Hawaii, it was at an ice cream parlor called Farrell's. Anyone my age remembers it. It was a fun gay 90s place. He did all kinds of theatrics, and it was a perfect job for me. And in the process of, it was right in the middle of Waikiki. It was in the international marketplace. It was a pretty cool place to work. And at that time, I met people other than my, friends at high school. I met other people and became friends with them. And two of those friends were from Punahou, which is a exclusive private school in Hawaii. And you had to have a brain to get into that school, and you had to have money. My parents wanted me to go because they knew it was a good school, but they didn't have the money. And so I met a few people, and they became good friends of mine, and they were smart, and even the jocks in that school were smart. You talk to these husky whatever football players, and I go to Punahou, and what's the sign of the coach, sign of the tension of the, it's like, all right. But the point of the matter is when I was a senior, we went to the carnival there at Punahou. And I wouldn't know until years later that running around in that crowd of teenagers was a future president. And he was a freshman, and I know what he was doing. What they were doing was, it was before cell phones or smartphones or whatever you guys call them these days. And it was before pagers, So what they did was they went to the information booth every 2 seconds to page their friends. So it was like, little Biffy, Buffy, Prescott, Edsel, and Dundridge, please come to the information desk. Your friends are waiting for you. That's all night long. The guy's blaring. They're blaring on the intercom and blaring it throughout. So you couldn't just look for your friends back then, just see if you could find them, walk around. Oh, there they are. No, you had to go and have them paged. So I know that Barry Obama was there running around with his freshman buddies, probably acting like asses, because everybody was there. So that's how I think of him. But it was an ugly spectacle because, first of all, it's Craven adulation. They needed something to clap about, so they hired their own audience. It reminds me of those Soviet Union meetings when Stalin comes out and nobody wants to be the first one to stop clapping because they'll be executed. Or North Korea, where they just keep clapping and clapping and clapping and clapping. Nobody wants to be the first one to stop. So it reminded me of that. Sycophant bootlickers. They were probably just looking forward to the brunch or the buffet that would be after the spectacle they have to sit through and act all excited about. And they're clapping every 10 seconds every time any of them open their mouth. And I knew what it'd be like. Gargoyle would do her nasal intro. And then, Punahou Punk would be there with his chin up. This is annoying affectation. But, I'll give credit to him. He's the first half-white president in history. And I don't know what that means as far as his DNA. So he's half-white supremacist. But the other half is good. And he was totally unqualified and inexperienced to be president. Everybody knows it. And I didn't like him as president. I didn't like the ACA, which they were touting, the Affordable Care Act. Didn't like it one little bit. And I didn't like his policies. And I thought he was pretty much an all right guy, except for the chin. But I guess I'm a racist because I guess I didn't like any of him, but he was half, race, where to say you don't like him, you're a racist. And that makes it difficult because I feel like I'm not being racist by saying, hey, I don't care what race you are. I just don't like your politics. That seems about as fair-minded as you can get about it. Everybody knows that, so it's ridiculous, but it's just disgusting that at this particular time in history, they would have to have this little reception to tout the anniversary of the ACA, which was signed into law, I believe, March 23rd, 2011, if I'm not mistaken. So it was close to the anniversary. It's like 11 years ago. And it was a horrible thing because when I applied for it, after all I put in and income and all that, of course, we're right in the middle where we're just poor enough to be not getting crap. We make just enough money to not get shit. And I think they said my subsidy would be $950 a month, and it's like, great. How much is the premium? And it's like, $1,900. So $950 off. That's only $950 left to pay per month for health insurance, which I won't be able to use unless somebody gets run over by a semi, because that's all it's good for is a catastrophic coverage, where they charge you $10,000 a day just to lay in a hospital bed. That's not including the tests. So the health system's got to go. It's an industrial complex. Now, it's funny, they would tout that great accomplishment from the first half-white president and get all this adulation, Craven adulation, and not realize that people don't trust the military or the health industrial, the medical industrial. We don't trust them at all. After the last 2 years, you're going to drag out this relic, this fossilized concept, As people are going to start getting excited about the ACA and how you're going to improve it by giving it to more homeless people. I mean, they've probably got more coverage than anybody. Now, nobody trusts the medical industrial complex, and nobody cares about the ACA. That's not even on people's radar right now. I don't know what they're doing about their health coverage. What I'm doing is playing Russian roulette and hoping I can make it another 2 years without getting sick. And I'm doing pretty good because of my mind. I can make myself not get sick. And that's one of the best insurance policies. And I could solve all that. If you give me 2 or 3 hours and in a quiet room with a pad of paper, I could solve all these medical problems once and for all. Because you need to have preventive care. You need to have a convenient place that doesn't cost that much. You don't make people pay $950 a month for medical insurance, and then it has a $10,000 deductible and a co-payment with each visit of $200, so you're not getting anything for your money. What you have is clinics. You have like one clinic for every 10,000 people in a population. So Carson City would have 5 clinics around town where you could just go in. You need an antibiotic, you got an infection. Okay, it's going to cost you $50, and here's your prescription. Okay, great. That's not that hard to do. And it would be preventative care. People would be much healthier, and they could pay for it themselves. It'd be $50 or $75. Go to Walmart for your prescription. They're great. So that problem's pretty much solved. It was an ugly spectacle. It was disgusting that they would be craving applause and needing an ovation with the first half-white president over some relic when what is going on at the same time? Well, there's atrocities. It's pretty much the worst period of American history that has ever happened. It's worse than World War II. It's worse than the Civil War. It's worse than any depression we've gone through. I don't want to go through the litany, but I will anyway. While they're touting themselves and patting themselves on the back on how they're going to expand the Affordable Care Act, we have real live atrocities and mass murder and genocide in Europe. We have a crisis at the border where anybody can do anything, and the border's being run by a drug cartel, which has expanded into other subsidiaries. We have a supply chain crisis. We have an inflation crisis. We have an energy crisis. We have a crime crisis. We have a China crisis, an old band from the 80s. We have a crisis of character. We have a crisis of truth. We have all these crises. Oh, we have the pandemic crisis. Let's not forget about that. Because I will agree with Petri dish, that's not going to go away. Things are coming back. If you look on Gravitas, you will see that China is having a cow because something's happening over there. And I don't know. But the other irony is they talk about the ACA expansion and how they're going to improve it, and at the same time they're trying to kill everybody. So it's very ironic. It's very hard to understand. It's like, why do you want to give us more medical coverage when you're obviously trying to kill, about 9/10 of the population of the planet? It's obvious. So I don't know why they're touting that old thing. Never liked it in the first place. Didn't really like freshman Punahou Punk. I didn't like his policies. That makes me a racist because although I didn't like the half-white part of his policies, I didn't like the other half of his policies. But you can't you can't criticize anyone of color because then you're a racist. So that's why they probably should get all people of color into their leadership, certain segments, so that they will never be criticized and they can do whatever they want. Be oligarchs, which they already are. So I'll leave it at that. I thought it was a horrible thing to see, and I hope I never have to see any of that again. I want Petri Dish to speak more off the cuff and do a few more press conferences. That's much more entertaining than anything you'll see on Netflix. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if it was good or not, but I'll go with that and enjoy the afternoon. Bye.